Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. So as of today being the day that I'm making this video, probably not the day that it's being posted, but if you go to the Guild Wars 2 website, you could see that there are some upcoming changes. Now I don't typically notice these usually elude me, but I saw on Reddit that there was some sort of thread revolving around this, and so I had to see for myself because this is kind of an interesting change out of nowhere, at least if you ask me. It says, coming soon, changes to underwater skills. So that's right guys, it seems like ArenaNet is focusing underwater combat for the first time in the longest time for some reason. If you continue on, it says the next Guild Wars 2 balance update arrives on May 8th, that's 1 week from this video, bringing a sea change to underwater combat. We're enhancing underwater skills and utilities so you can blast the barnacles off anything that tries to nibble your toes while you're swimming. So a little flavor text there, but why now? Why all of a sudden are we getting these underwater changes? Not only with this post do they allude that these changes were being made, like obviously this post tells you that it's actually gonna happen, but if you look right back at the April 24th patch notes and you scroll down to Mesmer, in addition to nerfing the Signet of Ether, which totally needed to happen for the cheesy Mesmer build that I'm still running right now, I am not ashamed guys, I am trying to enjoy PvP with a broken class, alright? But that's not what we're here to talk about. If you look, it says, underwater Mesmer clones now wear aquatic headgear that match what their summoner is wearing. I just thought that was, like, it's a cool change, but why? Most people don't even enjoy underwater combat, at least at the time of that patch, right? Who knows what these changes will bring for underwater combat, but I just think it's a little odd, and I will tell you why, and then maybe we can speculate on this a little bit. For the most part, I'm making this video to build hype around potentially improved underwater combat, guys. It's been about 5 years since we saw an overhaul like this, or like they're alluding to at least, so this could be really exciting for the game. The reason it's so weird is when you look back at the core Path of Fire maps, or if you look at even the Living World Season 4 maps that have come out, even the ones with water don't really have a whole lot going on. Now, if you look at the core game, which is what they originally intended Guild Wars 2 to be, you'll see a lot more underwater-focused events, you'll see some hero points, things like that. But as we progress further and further through the story, and therefore the maps of Guild Wars 2, the water side of combat has been downplayed over and over and over again. There was even a PvP map that had an underwater component that was reworked to not have any kind of underwater component to it so that players who hated underwater combat didn't have to deal with it. And I'm sure there was much more to it than just the underwater aspect, but every major update that's come into the game for the longest time just seems to be ArenaNet moving further and further away from any kind of underwater anything. Until this post. So I ask you guys, why do you think now, out of all of Guild Wars 2 thus far, they decided that it was time to improve these skills? And this is where we're gonna get a little bit speculative, so hopefully this isn't too crazy. I doubt it will be. I'm sure many of you know where I'm going with this already. But we do know of an underwater elder dragon, the deep sea dragon that the community affectionately calls Steve or Bubbles. And this dragon we know very little about, but what we do know is that it's underwater. So yeah, I've been thinking for a long time now, like if we do go after Steve, how is the underwater combat gonna translate there? Or are we just gonna lure Steve onto land and fight him there instead? Aside from that, we also got Path of Fire just recently, and Path of Fire was more or less the Nightfall expansion from Guild Wars 1. So many people have been looking at the Guild Wars 1 expansions for inspiration for what might be coming around the corner in Guild Wars 2. And the obvious and most exciting choice would be Cantha. Now, Cantha itself isn't necessarily completely submerged in water. I'm sure that the water level rose along with ore when that happened, but even with that added water, it wouldn't be any worse than, say, old Lion's Arch versus new Lion's Arch, But the entirety of Cantha is surrounded by water, so maybe this is a nod to that? I'm not sure. That might be a little bit more of a stretch as far as any kind of confirmation of a factions or Cantha style expansion. But I'd be very curious to hear what you guys have to say about this upcoming change. I mean, do you even care? Does this seem like sort of the beginning of Cantha, or at least of Steve, the underwater dragon? Do you think that that's where we're headed? Additionally, I would like to ask a few other questions because, again, I just like to have conversations in the comments whenever I can, so we'll see how this goes. But typically, or at least with the previous two Guild Wars 2 expansions, we more or less followed one race. So with Heart of Thorns, it was the Sylvari, and with Path of Fire, it was the humans. Let's just say that it is confirmed without a doubt that we are going to Cantha and we are going to explore that region once more. What race do you think is most fitting if we do go to Cantha? Do you think it's Asura, Norn, or Char? If I was a betting man, which I totally am not, but if I was a betting man, I would put my money on the Asura, and I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear that, because that might mean that once we do get to Cantha, it is vastly different from the Cantha that we knew back in Guild Wars 1. When we look at the Living World Season 4, we actually return to what was another major city in Guild Wars 1, Kamadan the Jewel of Istan, now renamed Palawadan, because Palawajoko has taken that region over. ArenaNet up until this point seemed like, for the most part, they want Lion's Arch and the pay-to-visit locations you can get off the gem store to be your one-stop shop for all the vendors that you'll need. Now, factions, or Cantha, the region of Cantha, had Kining Center, and Kining Center, I'm really hoping, is just so much more evolved than it was back in Guild Wars 1, rather than just completely overwhelmed by some force and turned into a farmable meta event, more or less. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Palawadan's fun, but I really don't want to see that happen to Kining Center. Anyway guys, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I just saw this post and I wanted to make a video kind of talking about my thoughts on this. I hope that you guys will give me a little bit of what you're thinking down in the comments. But hey guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.